chi. Now me pe de wadan pa dan min dra wargyur chi. Ne ring cha dang ni dang dra we tang yum cha pa dan e pargyur chi. Sam chen tam che de wadang de we gyu dan dan pargyur chi. Du nel ji gyu dan dra wargyur chi. Du nel me pe de wadan pa dan min dra wargyur chi. Ne rin cha dang ni dang dra wei tang yom cha pa ne park yur chi. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, immeasurable loving kindness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering and have immeasurable compassion. May all beings never be separated from the root of sorrowless joy and have immeasurable bodhicitta. May all sentient beings live in equanimity and be free of strong desire, hatred, and indifference, and live with immeasurable equipoise, the mind totally awakened to bodhicitta and holding that awakened for all beings. Okay, thank you. So we always, in our practice of Buddhism, of Vajrayana or the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, we always start with refuge because this is what we find meaning our practice is under the guidance of the Buddha. We didn't meet the Buddha. Now we're alive, almost 2,600 years later than when the Buddha lived, but we met the Dharma, which is so precious. The Buddha attained enlightenment. Then once he attained enlightenment, he said, I'm not just going off into nirvana or individual liberation. I'm going to stay and I'm going to teach. He called that turning the wheel of the Dharma. So the Buddha is the teacher, the Dharma is the teaching, and the Sangha is the community of practitioners who follow that guidance of teaching. Now, one of my main teachers, His Holiness the Great 14th Dalai Lama, is very well known around the world in all faith traditions. Most of the year prior to the last 2 years, I was living in India, and His Holiness has been living in India as probably the longest refugee there for over 60 years. But he says he loves to live in Mother India because all the world's religions are there. Of course, Hinduism's one of the largest world's religions, and there are lots of Hindu practitioners there, as well as Islamic practitioners, Buddhists, Jain, Christians, Jewish. There are lots of other tribal traditions there, tribal shamanistic traditions, witches, uh, worships of in Hinduism of many, many thousands goddesses and gods. So it's very open, it's a very open society. And it's a secular society like the United States and like Canada, where people have the freedom of religion. So this is something we don't take for granted because this is not true in all countries. People are not afforded that freedom in many countries of the world today. So we start by remembering our teacher of the Buddha for leaving us these teachings. And then we think about the teachings themselves, the Dharma. What's the main teaching of Buddhism? What would people say? Some of you Buddhists, you tell me, what do you think is the main teaching of Buddhism? Compassion. Yeah, definitely. That's up there. Compassion. What else? You don't have to be Buddhist or follower. Some of you have studied world religions and you have ideas. Go ahead, Barry.
Being present in the current moment here on Earth.
Okay, being mindful and present in the moment here, that we can be mindful. So compassion, mindfulness, presence. Barry?
Oh, Abby wants to say.
Abby?
Impermanence.
Impermanence is definitely the second noble truth. That's an important one. So let's start with, and I'll take a few more. Let's start with what Sister Eileen said. She said mindfulness, right? So we talked before about having this beautiful human awareness of consciousness because every living thing has consciousness. But humans have the capacity of a consciousness to become aware of awareness. In other words, we're not just conscious based on just intuitive consciousness, like maybe the mosquito sensing a danger that has to fly away. We don't really know if the mosquito's like, oh wow, that was a close call, or if it just flies away because it senses danger. But we can be aware of, say we're driving the car and we just miss getting in an accident, we go, wow, that was a close call, right? We know with our awareness that what almost just happened. So we can become more aware, mindfully being aware of being aware. And that leads us to understanding impermanence. What Abby suggested, we can be aware that things just change all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And sometimes that change is wonderful. Like when we're young and we're babies and we're learning how to walk and talk and eat like a big person at the table and share our loves with each other, with our auntie, come and see all my stuff, Zaza, my niece would say to me. She was so proud, she'd have everything laid out there. And she was only very young, but she knew this was like her room and she wanted to choose her clothes. And we're growing, so we like that change. Of course we do. We have to rejoice and change. But what then you have to say, so what about compassion? Why do we need compassion? If mindfulness and impermanence are important teachings, we have the awareness to become a Buddha. That's the main teaching of Buddhism. We have the awareness to wake up because sometimes change happens in ways we don't like, right? So sometimes change because of impermanence, we can use those two words interchangeably. Sometimes change happens because it's in the nature of being able to change. Our whole life is in the nature of being able to change the whole material planet, as we see with, what do we say, climate change, changing. That's just how it is on the material level. And sometimes that's very good, like the winter's going to come into the spring. For those of us who are living in a peaceful place, we're not worried about wars starting to become more intensified, like in Russia and Ukraine. Now, when the winter changes, that the fighting will heat up again because that's just dependent on the weather. So it's not so nice for them. But for us, we say, oh, well, it's nice. It's getting spring. The flowers are coming. We can appreciate the change. So impermanence is there, and impermanence can sometimes be our biggest friend and sometimes be our biggest foe. It can always be a friend if we think about the teachings of the Dharma. We think Buddha said, yes, you're in the nature of change, but this means you don't just start as a little baby that's ignorant, that doesn't know what you can do. You have to depend on others, have to eat the vegetables your mother gives you, even if you don't like those vegetables, you have to eat them. You're very dependent in that moment. You might get older in life and you're more independent. You can choose your own food, but somebody might fire you. One of my students today called me and said, "Oh, guess what? I got fired today." He wasn't in a bad mood about it. He's had his first like year and a half job after Bates, and he came and he helped me do something for the Dharma. He helped me move books, and he was totally fine about it. And that change was like that. And I said, well, don't take a lesson because he said, well, I wish he would have told us a few months ago or even a few weeks ago that he was going to do this. But he just on Monday morning called his two employees in and said, look, I have to let you go. I have to fire you. I don't have enough money. I said, yes, of course, he's been aware of that for a long time. And the good thing would be to let people know that change is coming, especially a change like with your economics. And I said, please, because he's very independent, he'll do fine. When you get to be somebody's boss, don't do that. Don't change very suddenly, because that's very hard for us to handle change. When we know change is coming and we get our mind around it, it becomes much more natural, right? So some change we can predict and we can let ourselves really be comfortable with, like growing older. For some of us, we know already, no matter what age we're at, we can't keep this life and this body forever. We cannot. So that makes this life very precious. We know we have to give up this life at some point. I believe firmly, I'm sure in my own heart, life will go on. But it won't go on necessarily. We can't take anything with us. I can't take my lovely Tonka painting with me. I can't take my robes. I can't take my dear friends. I can't take my pet. I can't take any. Well, I don't really have money, but what else would I like to take with me? I don't know. All of you, my friendships, my deep connections and joy in this world are the people I'm with. But, I have a peace of mind because I believe we met again and again and again. I believe that really. I believe that we're part of an amazing mystery of evolution in life. And then I don't worry about it too much. I think, look, I have had to let go of a lot of people in this life. My own dear parents have passed away. My own grandmother suddenly when I was quite young. Um, and some of you have that experience also. My pets when I was young. That's really, I think, what set me up to become a Buddhist because I was so upset with God. I was like, why are you being so horrible? All these loved ones are disappearing. How can that be? But now as somebody older, you can say it's part of the existence of life. We can look at it scientifically. Things have to change, and in that change, there's great promise. If that we talked last week or the week before about the lotus seed planted in the mud and muck. Now, if it couldn't change and send out a shoot and then one day eventually blossom into a lotus flower up above that mud and water, how could, it would just have to stay stuck. It would not be able to transform into a beautiful lotus. Ourselves, if our own mind stayed like a baby mind, infant, very dependent on other people's opinions, what they were doing. Oh, why aren't they thinking about me? Um, Whatever, that's very infantile mind. I have to have it my way all the time. You have to listen to me. I'm the boss, the big boss. You're telling others that. That's a very childish mind. But if our mind is accepting, like, my one thing I can take control of and I need to in this life is my own happiness. It's true or not? Yeah, our own happiness. That's our most important. So then we can understand deeply that's the mind of awareness. That's the Buddha nature, letting us know that's true. Your Buddha nature is just the one that's aware what's helpful, what's harmful, what brings out um, wholesome life feelings, lifestyles, friendships, circum environments, and what brings about unwholesome. That's still your Buddha nature is guiding you. That's your best friend. That's what you're going to take with you after this lifetime. You're going to take that kind of awareness that's going to help determine your immediate happiness right now through that awareness. And you don't even actually have to be happy. You just need to be aware. You just need to be alert to being aware. That's alert's a little heightened mindfulness, but we could use Eileen's example. Yeah, we have to pay attention, be alert right here, right now. We have to use Abby's example because things change, so I want to pay attention so I don't miss something, I don't want things just to change and kind of go with the flow and see where that current takes me because you want to be directing where your attention's going. And then we want to think about compassion. Whoever shared compassion, because this is not an easy experience. Life is not an easy experience. It's a wonderful experience. It's a powerful, intense experience, but it is not always easy. Some moments are quite easy. We don't usually pay much attention, too much sharp in those moments because it feels good. We don't have to tune in too much. I mean, I know some of you are dancers. I used to be a dancer when I'm young. Oh, you're wonderful. You're blissed out. It's fantastic. Good. That's good. We have to cultivate those moments. But if you can, then cultivate a mindfulness of that joy and then tell yourself, this is my true nature, whether I'm dancing or not. This joy is this immeasurable joy of just being alive. You don't need a partner for that. You don't need a pet. You don't need to be dancing. You don't need music. You don't need a special food. You just need to become aware of being joyful that you're alive. Of course, we can use moments of joy to remind ourselves of that. We should. Because we need to cultivate that awareness. So every time we feel some joy, say, amazing, wonderful, so happy to be alive. And then we think with compassion, well done, because this is not an easy journey. It means you're staying clear, you're staying present, you're staying mindful, alert, you're showing gratitude, and you're accepting change. You're accepting that whatever can come, you're able to handle. That's very mature attitude. We really need to cultivate this mind. And it's not like a very forceful mind. It's not a discipline in the sense of being harsh to oneself. It's a discipline in the sense of just remembering. Just remembering. In those moments of joy, if you think back now, think back to a moment in your childhood time, like maybe when you were 5 or 6. Can you think of a moment of just total bliss where you were just totally in your own element? Let's just take 2 moments now to think about that. I'll set the timer. Just recall joy, but it has from your childhood, preferably. And when you get the instance, just try to bring in other positive emotional states that were part of this moment of joy that you're recalling. Whatever other beings were there, very detailed. See, as sharp as you can be in your mind of these details. Who else was there? Think about the gratitude. Who was part of your joy? Who helped bring that joy about, if there were people involved? Or maybe pets involved? Many people remember pets. Okay, let's come back with our joy memory. And can we share? Let's see. If you want to share, just raise your hand and then I can see your names and I'll say unmute. Okay, Katie the Pisces, we'll start with you.
I just wanted to share, I'm Tenzin's niece, and the story about look at my stuff, that was me. And my moment of joy involves my aunt. I remember I inherited a yellow dress that my aunt wore when she was a little girl, and I dug it out of my grandmother's this trunk in her basement, and I wore it when I was 5. And I remember being in my mom's backyard barefoot in the grass and just sunflowers and just blooming gardens. And I can't fully recall if my aunt was there, but I feel like she was there. And I just feel like the warmth and the sun and that sense of play and lightness and curiosity, those are the main factors that I take out of that experience. And I'm fortunate to have a photo of myself, of my little self in that dress. And I can really like bring back that memory. And I think about those key elements of how I felt in that moment. And I'm always trying to find that sense of play and curiosity and lightness now as an adult.
Yes, beautiful. I think I know who took that photo.
Who took that photo? You did. Of course you did.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Yeah, and this is why also like images, photographs, and all those rich details. And I know I did because I remember how you looked, and I've been a photographer for a long time, so that's part of using very clear memory and mindfulness of the moment of what you're capturing. And yes, and so there's a beautiful whole story around that joy. And And now Katie's just about to be 29, and yet she can recall that like yesterday, I'm about to be 59, and I can also really recall exactly where that was, and probably even better because I was older in some ways. But thank you. Another moments of joy, some details. Yes, Eileen.
So I couldn't really go back into my childhood, but in my early 20s, I was biking across country with a group of other people doing anti-nuke work. Um, and so we were biking from Seabrook to Rocky Flats in Colorado. Anyway, and so I just remember one night which was filled with both joy, absolute joy, but also sorry, grief at the same time. So, you know, there was easily, the numbers varied, but there was easily 25 people, and most everyone was ahead of us. It's totally dark. We're, you know, who even knows where we're biking to? We had a couple of vans who were, you know, taking care of food and wherever we were staying. So we just like, as long as we were on the right road, we just went. So I was in the back, you know, way back, couldn't see anyone in the front, but plus it was dark. And none of us had lights. I didn't have a helmet, you know, it was a while ago. And Curtis from Wichita, Kansas, was behind me. So the two of us were together, and we're probably in Iowa or somewhere like that. And we're biking, and no, you know, this country road, no one's on the road except for us. We don't have any lights. We're just biking and just feeling the wind, and having already biked, you know, sometimes 90 miles a day, plus doing, you know, die-ins and who knows what else we were doing on the way. Um, Totally dark, totally silent, just feeling really at one with my bike and with the road and the wind and everything. And then we hear a shot and a dog go, you know, yelp. And we realize that someone has just shot their dog for whatever reason. Um, and uh, and we were just biking, you know, um, so it was all of that. It was all of that.
So powerful memories involving joy, and then maybe interruption of that freedom and joy to realize, you know, that simultaneously death or cruelty or whatever, unexpectedness, because we don't really know. Maybe the
We don't
dog was
know.
in pain and
Yeah,
had to be put down, so we can't make even a decision about that, but
exactly.
some kind of sharp interruption of that
Yeah.
moment.
And then just continuing and still just riding in the dark with the wind and the silence after that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Pretty,
Hmm.
um,
Okay, thank you.
that's what
Thank you
I'm
for
sharing.
sharing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so anybody else have another moment of joy that they want to? Okay, please unmute. Yeah, go ahead. To Abby Berry.
I'm just remembering like being at the beach with my like family and family friends, and me and some of the other kids were like picking up seaweed and like shells, and we were wrapping all the seaweed in shells, and we set up like a little market where you would like buy a mystery seaweed packet of, and then you'd unwrap it, and then you'd find a cool shell. And like I just remember like being like all over the place, like running around grabbing seaweed and just being so excited. And yeah, it was just very magical.
Making your seaweed presents with the hidden shell, the lucky charm of the shell inside. Beautiful. And you remembered being with your friends, you remembered exactly at the ocean and what you're doing. And Aileen remembered like how important that was for her to be an activist at that time and to bring awareness around, I think you said nuclear activism. So nuclear power and the risks there. Yeah. Okay, anybody else have a joyful memory that they want to bring back? So thank you for sharing. what I want to do is go to a meditation now that's a listening meditation. And the joy meditation was meant to try to touch this heart of bodhicitta, this heart that's a very special, great compassion, meaning no matter what would happen, we can still find joy. So, to use Eileen's example, she's biking as part of a protest movement to bring awareness about nuclear power, nuclear energies, maybe nuclear bombs, and the dangers that they pose to life, to all of life. And she's enjoying being on this open road and riding in the dark and trusting and being part of the universe. And then here's a gunshot, which, no matter what is always disturbing, but then hearing a dog yelp. So then simultaneously there's an interruption and yet still continuing along the road after that and moving quite along. And this is a very good metaphor that we need for our bodhicitta. It's not that on this worldly plane we're ever going to come to a place where there won't be pain. Pain is part of life, but suffering's optional. Suffering is optional. Pain is there, either physical, mental, emotional, sometimes in life that arises, like change happens. Like I said, people pass away, our loved ones, or we feel concerned for a specific situation around the environment or for the politics or the unfairness in this world. Those things are painful, but suffering is a choice. So we don't need to suffer. We can choose instead to respond to difficult situations also with a heart of courageous joy. That's just an awareness of holding the light, holding the awareness of goodness, of compassion. So this is why Ninje Chenpo, the great compassion, means every moment having compassion, because that great joy as well as that potential for pain are simultaneously present. And we can't just hit a pause button and just keep everything in a tight package that's always going to be joyful. But the more we appreciate joy and cultivate that mind of compassion with the wisdom that understands life does change, the more stable our mind will become around not being too much influenced when we hear news going up, going down, life is changing, new life is coming in, other life is going out. We just say, wow, this is an amazing dance of life that I'm a part of, and I want to be skillful in this awareness that can create a depth of understanding of peace of mind. So let's move to this. Now I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes, really get comfortable, like whether you're sitting or you can lay down. Some of you, I see you're on like a couch or something. Just get really comfortable, because this is a guided meditation where she's going to invite you to be as comfortable as possible. And it's a listening meditation. We might go a few minutes after 8. I hope that's okay for people. If you have to go, you can tune out earlier, but this one, we need a few minutes late over our 8 o'clock time.
So for this meditation, I'm just going to ask you to come into a comfortable seated position and to close your eyes, because it's going to be a specific meditation that is more helpful if you close your eyes. And as you do, and start to settle down into your body, noticing your breathing. You start to feel a more relaxed centeredness. And one of the easiest and most effective ways of resting into meditation or getting into a meditative state is simply through listening. It's a very effective way to calm and center the mind, particularly when the mind is busy or scattered or upset. So now simply turn your attention to listening. And we're welcoming and allowing. We'll start with the external sounds. Whatever sounds that you can hear in your environment. Whatever you hear, just listen without a label. Without liking or disliking. Without a judgment or an evaluation. So you can listen to the sound of my voice come and go. Maybe you can hear traffic wherever you're sitting. People's voices. The birds. Machinery. Wind. Or rain. Whatever it is, simply allow your mind to be open and expansive. And allow all these sounds just to float in and out of your awareness. You can notice if there's a liking or a disliking to certain sounds. But just let those judgments come and go too. Just as you're allowing the sounds to come and go naturally. So you notice that the judgments can just dissolve naturally. We're not listening for anything in particular. We're simply open and relaxed. And as you start to be more sensitive and aware of the different external sounds coming and going, you can take this same allowing attitude to your own thoughts. You just listen as they pop in. But as soon as you turn your attention to listening, without attaching to them or picking them up, just notice what happens to the thoughts. When you simply listen, there's a detached observer. Just being the stillness as everything's just whirling around you, coming and going, rising and dissolving. The sounds, the thoughts, the views, the opinions. Just listen. with interest and mindfulness, but with detachment. And as you become more acutely aware of the objects of your attention, the external sounds, the internal voice, see if you can start to notice and listen to the silence. Of course, silence is the absence of sound at one level, but it's also this felt sense of just knowing the space between each thought, between each sound. But also that which is the constant background silence to all the sounds, to all the movements that are taking place. Then you just notice even a moment of this silence and how the sounds and thoughts don't really disturb this silence. The silence remains unmoved, untouched. It's only when we get caught, become reactive to the sounds or the thinking, that we lose connection and awareness of this all-pervading silence. So now see if you can just gently turn your attention towards resting and listening in this silence, even in the midst of sound. And if listening is not really the right word for you, just sensing, feeling, that might be more resonant for you. Because it's not a thing or an object, but we can know it in the heart through the intuition or the felt sense. And if you can sense this within your own being, then allow yourself to rest into it. Not forcing it, not attaining it or getting it, because it's always there anyway. It's simply recognizing the all-pervading silence. And if you're able to tune more and more into this silence, you can go deeper into understanding and recognizing the way the mind fabricates a subject and an object. So just notice if you feel or you're conceptualizing that there's a subject here listening to a silence, or a subject listening to a sound. And start to see and investigate how this very notion of a subject is constructed. we feel like we're a center, located in space and time, and that there's a me doing meditation. And a me listening. But where is this subject? Where is this me? These notions of subject and object are both creations of the mind. And this can take a bit of time to understand this, to feel this. This is why we practice sitting in meditation. But in another sense, it takes no time at all, because it's beyond time. So it can only be realized when the concept of time itself dissolves. All notions, all concepts of subject, object, time and space collapse. We can't make it collapse, because that would just be the ego mind trying to do something, to get something. And this just perpetuates further delusion. So we simply notice. We just notice how we're constructing, where we're constructing. We observe how the self keeps perpetuating itself through thinking, through objectifying objects and sounds, objectifying a subject, and so on. And the practice is simply seeing through the delusions consistently, constantly. And then things may eventually collapse and dissolve. It can happen for a moment. It can happen for long moments. But there's no expectation, no demands. We're okay exactly with what's unfolding now, and we're awake to it. Alert, aware, listening without a listener. Experiencing without an experiencer. And when we do that, life can easily flow like a river that's unobstructed. And of course, sometimes there are obstructions, but we simply wake up. That's all we have to do, is to wake up to where we're stuck. Where we're blocking the flow of the river of life. And it's just that gentle waking up, that mindfulness that allows the obstructions to dissolve. And then our practice, our so-called practice, becomes natural, peaceful, not forced, not contrived in any way. just ordinary. But a different kind of ordinary, as the obstruction of me dissolves continuously.
Okay, thank you. Let's come out of that very wonderful listening meditation with Samaneri Jayasara, the nun from Australia. For those of us who are still here, thank you. I hope it was a good guidance for you. And we'll have eventually the recordings posted on the website. If anyone wants to help Tashi Getzeling with that, I'd love that. Please send an email or a message because I don't really know how to do these things, but I'm recording them. So now we've got a bit of a catalog. So we need some help of someone who might like to take on the Tashi Getzeling YouTube channel that links to our website. Anyway, someone just got in touch, so maybe she'll know how to do that. But if anyone else who's listening knows how to do that, please send a message. Okay, thank you. Hi, Abby, you can do that maybe? Okay, thank you. I'll send you an email then. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to dedicate our time together. Jangchup Semchok Rinpoche Maske Panam Ske Kyorchi Ke Parnyam Parme Paryang Go Ne Gondu Pelwar Shog. Bodhi mind, precious and sublime, may it arise where it has not yet arisen, and where it has arisen, may it flourish and grow forevermore. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. Through the virtues of these practices that we've performed tonight by listening, contemplating, and practicing, May the precious bodhicitta mind of great compassion arise and spread and never decline and continue forevermore. Okay, thank you, my dears. The people who have stayed for the duration, I wish you a beautiful week. If you want to unmute and say hello, feel free to.
Thank you.
So my suggestion for your practice this week is more listening. Just be dropping the idea that I'm listening and just become the just be listening, just straight up. And silence, more silence.
That's a good one.
So let's practice that this week and we'll check in and see how it's going. For Marie's iPad, hi from everyone. Hi to everybody. Marie says, thank you, Marie.
Hmm.
And yeah, hi, Amy. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Hi, Mom.
Okay, have a beautiful week and see you next Monday and keep practicing.
Thank you, Tenzin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.